officially invited to join the inner circle of top leaders from all over the country. Listen and learn as these obsessed entrepreneurs reveal the secrets that led to their success. Welcome to the community. Today's episode starts now.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Today I have an awesome guest who really needs no introduction, but I am going to introduce him anyways. It's a laundry list of things, so I'm going to condense this version, but he's been in the business for over 35 years, president of Ojo Labs, former CEO of Keller Williams, best-selling author of Dominant Thoughts, and honestly, I condensed that because it was really long and it was very hard for me, Chris, to try to figure out how to put it all in there. But everybody, this is Chris Heller. How's it going?
It's going good, Travis. It's going good. Yeah, when you've been around as long as I have, the resume sort of builds.
Yeah, it's it's impressive. It's an impressive. One of the things I saw was, number one agent in the world in 2009, and I'm like, how do you get that? Like, how do you get how do they give you that? How do they measure the number one? Is it just by transactions, or how do they do that?
Yeah, it was transactions and volume.
Wow.
And that was just to clarify, that was for all of Keller Williams. So in 2009, we had over 100,000 Keller Williams agents worldwide. So
wow,
that was there. I'm sure there were other agents in other companies that did more than me, but that year in Keller Williams, I was number one.
That is awesome. No, that is. So we'll do a little backstory on it. You've been in the business since, I believe it was like 1989. Is that about right? And then you kind of got started.
That's when I started in residential real estate. I actually got my license in 1983 while I was in college.
Okay.
I started selling houses in November 1st of 1989.
Dang. So what were you, when you got your license, when did you decide to kind of get your license? How'd you do that? And what were you doing first then when you got your license?
I got my license specifically for a summer job that of selling timeshares up in Lake Tahoe. And my dad called me one day and said, "Hey, you're going to get your real estate license and come up here and work for the summer." I said, "Okay." And so I did that. And then later that summer, he took a position of running a resort down in San Diego. So we moved down to San Diego, and then I never left San Diego. I never went back to, I was at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I never went back there. I started taking classes for about a year at the junior college, then transferred to the University of San Diego. But I kept working full time. I never stopped. From that summer till today, I've been working full time. And so did that for 3 years. I was making good money. I was making 3 times, maybe I'd make about double of what the jobs that people were getting who were graduating from college were getting. And then I met a real estate broker. And for 3 years, I met him in 1986. And then for 3 years, kept, recruiting me and trying to get me to join his company and send me handwritten note cards and call me. And every time I saw him, and then we had a meeting one day. I was going to, it's a long story. I at the time I had a marketing company and I had a partner, and we started off in my townhome, and within 6 months, at 35 employees, 40 employees, the business went straight up. I mean, it could have been a movie. It was crazy. I used to take he bought a limo. I used to take the limo to the bank every week and make the deposit. Wow, when I look back, it's crazy.
What year was that?
This is 1986 or 87. Actually, it was 87, 88. It was because I got married in 88, and this is before I got married. And so this business we had 2 toll-free numbers in my townhome, one upstairs, one downstairs. we would take calls and we would book appointments. We were an inbound call center.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got into doing the direct mail ourselves and generating the calls and then setting appointments for timeshare resorts. And then we just scaled it like crazy. We bought back then, we bought 40 computers for cash, and the computers were expensive back then. We had, we set up this whole office, and no time we went from the two of us to like these 40 employees, 40 desks, 40 computers, this phone system, lights on the wall. You could tell when people were on hold, how long they were on hold. This like had them software that we had.
That sounds awesome. And the computers were probably like huge too.
There's a local computer company in San Diego called K-Pro Computers. And so anyways, we did that. And so the business went straight up, like crazy amount of money. We were making crazy amount of money we were spending. And then it went equally down as fast as it went up. My partner sort of went off the deep end, got into a lot of drugs and alcohol, and it turned into like the worst nightmare. I've had some nightmares in my life. This was one of the top 3 or 4. And at one point I had my girlfriend, her brother, her sister, her mother, my brother, all working for me, and 30 some other people. And at one point, when it was ending, I just had to go in one day and just say, everyone, you need to go home. You're not gonna get paid anymore. We're done. And it was a lot of lessons, a lot of hard lessons. Anyways, I recovered from that and was going to start over again on my own without my partner. And the real estate broker that had been recruiting me for 3 years, I went to him to lease, say, hey, I need a new office and need to lease some space. And he's kept telling me to get into real estate and to come and join him. And finally I said, all right, I'll give it a try. And so that's how I got into real estate.
Wow.
1989.
And then, so, I mean, you had that background of, cause you were, I imagine you were on the phones too when you had your timeshare, you were doing all that stuff too.
Yeah, I was doing, selling timeshares. You're basically doing 90-minute presentations, right? And so I did literally thousands of those. And so when it came time to giving a listing presentation or a buyer consult, it was like,
it was easy,
like a piece of cake, right?
That's awesome. So when your first year, you got Rookie of the Year. Do you remember how many homes you sold in your first year?
Yeah, I sold 27, and 24 of them were for sale by owners that I listed that I convinced to hire me. So yeah, I started in November of 89. So this was 1990. Excuse me, I started in November of 88. So that was 1989, Rookie of the Year. The only reason they were for sale by owners, by the way, is that the manager, I was such a pest because I just wanted to know like what I needed to do and how to do it. And I kept asking, and there was no training back then, right? There's no internet.
Yeah.
There was no, so, just had to figure it out. And the only way to figure it out was like asking agents, asking the managers, like, well, what did you do this? What does this mean? Or why did you do this? And finally one day he just gave me this piece of paper that looked as old as he was, and he was old. And it was a 1-page script for calling for sale by owners. And so that's all I had. And so that's all I did.
Was that your main lead source? Like, I mean, just, that's your
just more anything else, right? It's like, if that script was for something else, I would have done something else. It just happened to be for sale by owners. And so, then I had to, I just followed that script and just did it. And you quickly learn what works and what doesn't work. But in retrospect, yes, the script was sort of gave me the framework, but it was just sheer determination and grit. I wouldn't take now. I was no one, I was just relentless, and no matter what someone said, I was not going to. I just didn't stop.
Where did that come from? Like where, like is just you've always been that way, or is there something that you're just kind of like you just? I mean, where does that? Because I mean, there's got to be some kind of intrinsic kind of just like willingness to win. That other like where did the motivation come from to just being like, God?
I think I think there's just things that happen in life that causes it pushes you in one direction or another, right? So there, I don't know exactly where it came from, and
Yeah,
the things I think it came from, maybe things that I've made up.
right.
Like I stayed back in second grade, and when you stay back, even if it was a choice to do that, in the eyes of all the kids, you flunked, you're a failure.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I can look back and say, well, from that point on, I overachieved. Whether it was to prove that I wasn't stupid or that I didn't flunk or any of those things, who knows? But I think from that point on, I really overachieved. I remember going out when I was a freshman. I wanted to play basketball, and we had a family vacation, which caused me to miss the tryouts. And so I came back and met with a coach. And he said, "Hey, sorry you missed it." And I was like, "No, I want to be honest. I wouldn't leave." And finally, he said, "All right, you can run lines. Like the team was practicing. He goes, you can run lines. The lines was like running the free throw line and back, half court line and back, the other free throw line back."
Yeah.
That the whole practice. And like, he looked over and like, this crazy kid is still running, like 30, 40 minutes later. And he was all, after that, he goes, "All right, you can, we'll
That's awesome.
So I was just, so there's probably just a lot of determination, a lot of, very competitive, but not competitive with myself, like always wanting to do better, wanted to do better than I'd be better. And so those things are, I think, have always driven me and still do to this day.
Man, that's so did you play basketball? Did you play basketball just in high school?
Baseball, football in high school, and until my junior year. And then when I was a junior, my parents said, "Hey, exciting news. We're selling," my dad was selling his businesses, "and we're moving to Lake Tahoe and got to start this new business, and it's got to be great." I was like, "I'm not going." And I didn't mean to back up, but I'm not leaving. I have been here since second grade. I am finishing high school here. I am not leaving. Well, what do you got to do? I said, "I will get a job. I will get an apartment." And that's what I did. I had a friend that lived down the street who was 3 years older than me. He and I got an apartment. I got a job. I worked. So my senior year, I didn't play sports because I knowing that I was going to be working so much, I didn't want, and playing sports and working, and school was like,
yes,
I was afraid it impact my school, and I really wanted to go to college, which is ironic because I never finished college. But at the time, it was important to me, and so I worked graveyard shifts. I worked from either 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. or 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. and then sleep for a few hours and go to school, and then do that, and that and then graduated and went off to college.
Were you what kind of student were you, like grades wise?
I did well in school because I just worked really hard. I think I had 1 C in my 4 years in high school, so A's and B's. I think I had like a 3.6 to 3.6 GPA. But I never considered nor do I still consider myself very smart. I just probably worked harder and studied than most of the kids had to get the results that I was getting.
Wow. And so let's fast forward a little bit.
At this stage, for 3 weeks.
So rookie of the year, and then number one agent, 2009. Like during that time period, you're just burning and turning deals, right? Did you start creating a team at any point in there?
Yeah, I did, but the concept of a team didn't exist, right? So I didn't know it was a team. No one called it a team. There was no.
So what did they call it?
Well, at the end of my first year, I hired an assistant, and I had heard of an agent up in Long Beach that had an assistant, and I went to a conference where I heard a couple agents in different parts of the country that had an assistant, and that was like, wow, you could have an assistant. So like in San Diego, when I hired an assistant, I think I was the only agent in San Diego that had one. I was in an office of 60 or 70 agents, and when I hired this assistant, they were like, who do you think you are? Like, you think you're the president or something? And I was like, well, you've been stuffing envelopes for 5 hours. I'm going to pay someone to do that so I can go sell houses. Like, it just was common sense.
Right.
If I want to do more, I got to figure out how to get more time. And the only way to get more time was to pay someone to do some of the things I was doing. So it was just as I sold more homes, I needed more help, so then I brought on a showing assistant. But again, that term didn't exist. Anyways, it was just it was just someone to help, someone to join.
Yeah.
Like the showing assistant, like finally, it was this guy that worked at another company. He was really good at showing properties. Like, he would show my listings. He would ask smart questions when he called to check on the listings. He would always follow up and tell me how the showings went. And I said, hey, how would you like to, how about if I refer you all my buyer leads? Because I knew from day one I had to focus on listings. And and he goes, yeah. And I said, but I want, instead of the normal 25% referral fee, I want 35% because this is the one-time thing. I'm going to refer you all of them. He goes, great. And then after a while, I just said, hey, why don't you just come work for me? And he did. And so things just kept growing as we sold more homes, just needed more help. And then that was the genesis of a team.
That's so interesting because it's like, that's what I love talking. My mother-in-law she's been in the mortgage industry and like real estate for 30 years. I'm always like having these conversations of being like, what a different time it was than we are now. Like, it's so interesting. Like, there were no teams. And like, I feel like that's the number one. There was like, yeah, start a team. What team are you on? You didn't even have that. There wasn't even an option,
No. And back then, like, if you sold 50 homes in a year, you were one of the top agents in the country. Like, I would go to a conference, like 1990, 91, and there'd be an agent that sold 50 homes or 75 homes or 100 homes. And you'd be like, oh my God, like, this person is a king or a queen or, I mean, this was before agents really even used computers. Like, my CRM was 2 boxes, one with 30 dividers, the other one with 12 dividers. And, every lead I had was like, if today is the 30th and, I was supposed to call someone in 5 days, okay, on the 5th of next month, I put in, behind the 5. And then on that day, I'd say, okay, who's all the people I'm supposed to call? Or if I'm supposed to call them in 2 months, I put it in the other box. It was the 12 dividers. And that was my first CRM. That was, how I made sure nothing fell through the cracks. I would go through the newspapers, cut out the little classified ads of people selling their homes, cut them out, tape them on the 3x5 card, right on the top of the 5x5 card, the prefix of the phone number. And then I have them in a box by their prefixes. So when, the next week, if I saw an ad, I would check and see, is this one I already have or not? Right. So you just had to figure things out. Right. It's like,
no, it's like so easy. You know what I mean? Like, it's so easy. You want for sale by owner, like, there's systems that just give them to you. There you go. Like, you actually had the amount of like time that you had to take back then to do something. We always talk about like our parents, like how they had like, especially with like kids, got kids, and it's like, man, they had zero resources. Like I mean, you're like, hey, I'm having an issue, like, and it's, and you got to look it up. Like, you may not have that volume of encyclopedia yet because you bought them by the letters. You know what I mean? You're like, I gotta wait. I gotta buy that. I don't know what that's wrong, but like it's like kids have a problem, you just Google it. It's like we have it so easy right now. As far as the things that you all had to deal with when you were becoming agent. I mean, no MLS, right? I imagine you didn't have the MLS, so it's just
we had an MLS, but it wasn't online yet. So when I first started, it was, every 2 weeks they would print an MLS book that had all the new listings in it. So you're always excited to get that new book because you could see the new listings. And then when it went online, then we were able to see that on a daily basis, which was super helpful. It's really when that's when I really started attacking expired listings, right? Because then I'd have access to them.
Yeah. Do you remember your first for sale by owner script still?
Yeah. It was very simple. It was like, hey, Travis, this is Chris with XYZ company. I was calling about your house that's advertised for sale. I'm an agent. I want to get some information on it. And you would likely say, hey, I'm not listing, or I'm not like working with agents. I say, great, no problem. I just my job is to be aware of all the inventory because I work with a lot of buyers. I just want to find out some info. So do you have them? I ask you some questions. The questions were just to determine whether you had motivation or not. Because my goal on that initial call was, is this someone I want to go after or not? And so like, hey, when you sell it, where you moving to, and just making sure you had motivation. And then it ended with, hey, would you be offended if I were to stop by and preview the home? And when you word it that way, it's really hard for yes, I'd be offended.
That's a weird thing to be offended by. Of course, you're going to say no. I wouldn't be offended.
Yeah. And so then they go, yeah, but we're not going to list you yet. I promise you, I won't ask you to list your house with me. Yeah, I wouldn't. But then I knew it was just a game of. It was a game of attrition. Like I knew at some point they're going to wave the white flag, and I knew that the agent they hired would be the one that was in their face the most. I don't mean in their face like confrontationally. I mean like who was there the most, right? So it was just a process of me stopping by multiple times and delivering things and mailing them things and calling them with information. And I used to give them I used to go through. Back then, before the forms were online, they were all in a book, and it was like a pretty thick book, like about an inch thick, of every possible form that you need in real estate. So I'd make a photocopy of those, and I'd hand them these 100 forms and say, hey, just thought I'd drop these off. When you get an offer, these are some of the forms we use. When I sell homes, you're going to need these things. And I'd need, right? And I'm sure they'd look at that and go, what do we do with all this, right? But it was just this process that I had that was,
awesome.
If I execute on it, was very, very effective.
It's just being front of mind, when they do wave that white flag of being like, I'm calling Chris because he's the only number I have here. It's like, it's like you're there. So that's so cool. I mean, it's so funny after that many years, like you still know that script. You still know how you're like, it's embedded in you now.
Yeah. Yeah, and which is one of the keys, right, that we always teach agents is that you have to you have to practice and you have to internalize your scripts and dialogue. Because if you internalize them, you actually can be 100 times more effective because you're not winging it. You're not you're not reading a script. You're not sound scripted because it just then becomes conversational. And you can actually be in a conversation instead of being up here thinking, what do I say next, or what do I do, or what I need to ask them, or how do I handle that? Like, I never had, my mind was quiet because I knew, the scripts were so internalized, I could just be present in the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm always telling my agents, I'm like, hey, what's your favorite movie? They're like, whatever, Forrest Gump. I'm like, whole thing was scripted, the whole thing, but they made you believe it. And I was like, why? I was because they practiced that and like they became that person. I was like, so you have to become the script. Don't try to read a script. You have to become it. And I was like, when you do, you won't forget it. Like you won't ever forget it. It's just going to be, like you said, internalized in you, and it becomes a part of you. So
Yeah, the best example of that is in movies or in TV shows when you see a non-actor like have a cameo appearance.
mm-hmm.
It's so obvious that
Yeah,
they're not an actor, right? Like,
yeah.
thought about that. Yeah, like a professional athlete has a cameo in a movie, and they're like,
Yeah.
just so you go, oh my God, they're so bad at acting. No, they're just normal. The actors are so good because they practice and rehearse and understand how to deliver their lines that way.
That's so good. Oh, that's so good. So what, like right now where you guys are at, so you're the president of Ojo. I actually remember Ojo when I first started with Home City, which is how I met Ransom Tucker. I remember getting Ojo. They were like, "Hey, let's test this out," and like we were going through the Ojo. So when I saw Ojo, I was like, oh. So have you been with them since the beginning, or did you kind of like come on later on?
Well, the company was like started in 2016, and that's when I met them. At the time, I was running Keller Williams, and so I met them, and we were talking about bringing it into Keller Williams, and then I ended up leaving Keller Williams, like a year later. And then became an early investor in Ojo. They asked me to become an advisor, and shortly after that, they said, "Hey, would you, be on our board?" So I was a board member for a couple of years, and then in the middle of 2019, they said, "Hey, we could really use you full time. Like, would you join us full time?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll do that." I'm still here.
Are you loving it?
Yeah, I love. I love challenges. I love the people I work with. There's days where I love them. There's days when I don't, but that's why they call it work. But yeah, I like what we do a lot.
And it's that tech space.
I think part of why I like what we do because, I primarily get to work with thousands of real estate agents and thousands of real estate teams, and those are kind of like my people.
Mm-hmm. And it's that, because before, so when you became the CEO of Keller Williams, like what was the tech space like for Keller Williams at that point? Like because Ojo's a tech company, but what was it like when you became CEO? Like what was the technology thing? Because it was kind of, right during that time was slowly evolving. But where were you guys at as far as that? Because I know you were kind of the front runner and bringing a lot of the tech pieces there at Keller Williams. Is that right?
Yeah, but that started earlier. So I joined Keller Williams in an executive role in 2010, and my job was to launch Keller Williams globally in other countries. And so there were some things I had to solve for. One of which was how do we deliver, our value prop in another country? How do we deliver the things that we do and the services and the accounting and everything else? So it was, almost all that involved technology. And as I started to dig in, I started to realize that we were sitting on a bunch of legacy systems, some of which were held together with Scotch tape and thumbtacks and everything else. So I started to get very involved with, internally, like with what we did and how we're doing and why do we do this? And we need to be dangerous. We need to make these changes. And then figuring out how I was going to, leverage technology and, around the world. So that's when when Keller Williams, that's when I got involved. And so we started, I started making a lot of changes. I brought in, it's chief technical officer, which they never had. I brought in a chief product officer, which they never had, a chief innovation officer, and started to retool the company from top to bottom. But yeah, I'd been involved with technology though early on. In the year 2000, in the 90s, I had a guy build me a system. He had built a system for some, back then they call them boiler rooms, right? And instead of it was for another industry, but it had auto dialers and so I had him build it for real estate. So that was I can't remember the name of it. Anyways, I used that system forever. I had him come. I had a little guest house in our house. I had him come and live in my guest house for several months and build this. He was from Seattle, And then in 2000, I started to build a sort of an all-in-one platform for agents. And after spending several $100,000, which was a lot of money back then, of my money, and a lot of time, I realized, man, this is way more expensive and way more time consuming. So I just stopped and then just used that system myself for, probably a decade. But anyways, I've been always interested in technology and how we can leverage technology to do more, do better, to create more opportunities.
Man, what was that? What did your production? Did your production just like skyrocket after getting an auto dialer? I mean, like,
yeah. I mean, it's weird because back then, if you're selling 150 or 200 homes, that was like, that was a lot. Now there's teams that sell 1,200 homes, or there's, so it definitely went up. I wasn't focused so much on how big the team would be or how many homes. I was focused on profitability. Like I was maniacal about being highly profitable and achieving my financial goals and sort of putting blinders on to everything else. So it allowed me to, I just focus on how efficient and how effective I could be.
I love that, because that's really the biggest thing, right? Like, how much money can we make if you're doing this business? Like, how profitable can we be, opposed to how big of a team we have. If you're not profitable, or you're even profitable with your time, which is a huge thing of like, that's like my number one thing is like, am I profitable with my time? Because if I'm spending a lot of time doing things that, that don't make me money or don't give me joy also, then I don't want to do that. Like, I want to find another way, because to me, it's not worth it. It's not, I don't have much time, and that's the only thing I can't get back. And so, so you've had a lot of success, but is there anybody that, like, who was your, I guess, advisor? Was anybody you looked up to? Anyone that influenced you within your career? They're just like, this is the guy, this is the person.
Yeah, I've had many. And I've never been shy about asking for help or asking people that knew more than me. And I was always, I don't know if it was conscious at first or not, but I never, like, being the biggest fish in a little pond, I had no interest in that, right? I didn't have an ego about it, right? So I was always trying to expose myself to people that were doing more. I would fly all over the country and spend a day with an agent that I had heard about that was doing, something significantly more than me. It's kind of funny that at some point that sort of switched. I had agents probably on a weekly basis. I had agents that would fly in from all over the country to say, "Hey, can we shadow you for a day? Can we spend a day in your office?" And knock yourself out. I'm not going to change anything I do. So stay out of my life. I think so like, look, probably the earliest one was Mike Ferry, who ended up being then my first coach. Like, when he started, I think it was like in 1996, he announced he's going to do coaching, like one-on-one coaching.
Yeah.
And I signed up that day. Like, the first day I heard that we could have a coach, I was like, this is awesome. And now that I think about it, I've had a coach every day since then, including today. Like, I still have a coach today. And so, some of these coaches have been very influential and great mentors for me. I've had a couple that are, unfortunately are no longer with us, but huge impacts on my life and contributed in a huge way to me. I also had, I've also run the companies of two self-made billionaires, and so those were super good learning experiences too, right?
Yeah.
Gary Keller, and then Anthony Shea at Loan Depot. those, there's learning experiences. I've always had the mindset that there's learning experiences all around us. It's just whether we're paying attention or not.
I love that. That's awesome that you recognize that. And I think that when people, we're not the biggest team. We have small teams. Me, my wife, we have another girl on our team, but it's designed that way because I don't really want to have a huge team. I'd rather just do a bunch of volume, hang out with my kids, and that's it. That's it. But when people are like, man, you guys sell so many houses, but you have a coach, and I'm like, Michael Jordan had a coach his whole career. I'm not what do you think? I'm that good? You kidding me? I was like, that's the reason that anyone gets where they are is because they have someone call them out and help them give direction and see around the corners that maybe they can't see, and so I think we get into a point where we see these you've had an amazing career and you're crushing it and you're doing all these things, but also you're like, there's people behind the scenes that have helped motivate you and been there for you to kind of guide you. And it's a huge thing that people miss out on. I will probably, just like you, I have a coach now. I probably always will be, because if not, I'm doing this by myself, right? I want someone to have my back, and if I have to pay them and that motivates them to have my back, 100% I'll do it every time. Every time.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no one achieves greatness alone. Yeah. There's not a professional athlete. There's not an Olympic athlete. There's not, everyone that can would want to have a coach, right? It's like, you get where you're trying to go faster and more effectively. It's the best investment I've ever made, and I've made a lot of good investments, made some bad ones.
Hands down. So, all right. So you're pretty, it sounds like you're pretty self-motivated, but I always ask people, what are your daily rituals? Do you have things that you do where you're like, hey, I wake up at this time? Do you have are you pretty much every day you're doing the same thing? I have some people that are like, hey, I eat the same thing every day. It's just kind of the Steve Jobs type thing where it's I have all black shirts, it's all I wear. Do you have a ritual?
Yeah, I have a bunch of them. I get up at the same time every day. I eat the same thing every morning. I do the same exercise, same stretching and exercise. Yeah. So that's my morning routine is, stretching and exercising. I work out, every day. That's starting the day off, starting the first part of the day off. This is super important to having it be a successful day. I think that's something I learned early on and something I've always done, that having that discipline to do that has allowed me to achieve more on a daily basis. Than I think most people, just because I'm just very productive, for a finite period of time.
Yeah, no, I think that's the one consensus that I see with everyone that is doing really well in their space, is that they have those routines, they're consistent, and the mundane tasks that they do, they're spot on with their mundane tasks. They're like, yeah, I do this every day. This is what I do. And that's the one thing I think I always try to teach people is just fall in love with those mundane tasks, find a routine and then fall in love with it, because if you're doing that consistently, you'll be good at anything, and
yeah. And it's not, I would even go so far as to say, you don't have to fall in love with it. You have to develop the mindset, the discipline, do it, especially on the days you don't want to do it. I was up later than usual last night, and it's midnight, and I'm going, I should probably not get up so early, as I'm not going to, because I chose to stay up late. I'm not going to sacrifice, the next day.
Yeah. Those are the days that matter, right?
What's that?
Those are the days that matter. The ones where you don't want to do it.
Even on the days you don't want to do it, don't feel like doing it, are the difference makers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, tell me a little bit about Ojo. So the listeners out there that don't know anything about Ojo Labs, tell me a little bit about what you're doing for agents and kind of how they can get involved.
Yeah. So we actually, at the beginning of the year, sort of rebranded everything to Movoto. I'm wearing an Ojo shirt because
Gotcha.
I have 50 Ojo shirts and only a couple Movoto shirts, and couldn't find one this morning. So Movoto is a site that we bought in 2020. It's Movoto.com, and it's the 5th largest portal in the country. So you have Zillow, Realtor, Homes, Redfin, and then Movoto. And we're the only privately owned one. We meet millions of consumers. We take those consumers that want information and want to tour a property, and we introduce them to teams and agents. So we have 2 programs, one for teams, and we call Movoto Pro Plus, and that's where we partner with teams in a marketplace, and they get exclusive introductions of buyers and sellers. They pay us a monthly platform fee, and then a 17.5% referral. And so that's a program just for teams, and it works really well when the teams we partner with, that run the playbook that works, crush it, and the ones that don't, we have to work with them or help them bring new ones in. And then we have a second program for solo agents that we launched this year called Lever. And Lever is a platform for solo agents that probably aren't going to ever build a team. They don't want to join a team. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, they do want to do more, or they want it to work better. But they're either not going to do the stuff they need to do, or they don't like doing the things. So we help do all the things that need to be done so they can just go out and be productive. So it's really 5 things that we do with our Lever agents. We help them manage their database, their marketing, their transactions, their leads, and training. And what we find is when we do that for these agents, it's not uncommon for us to see them double or triple their production, because we're putting all those pieces together in a way that they aren't going to, or can't. And that's a program that we launched just a few months ago that's going great, and we're very excited about that, and the agents on it are very excited to be on it.
Is there what's the size of team? Is it any teams? Like, do you guys have a limit?
For Movoto Pro Plus, a small team would be 3 or 4 agents. It depends on the market, right? Like, and if it's a more of a rural or smaller market, it's not uncommon to see smaller teams. If it's a large market, we typically are partnering with like larger teams that cover the entire marketplace. My team, I still have a team in San Diego, by the way, even though in 2010 I stopped, working in that business. And so my team is part of Movoto Pro Plus, and we have like 300 other teams that are. So the size of the team can vary. What's more important than the size is their effectiveness, and do they understand, and are they willing to follow the playbook that we've created that we know works, because the teams that follow it, are crushing it, and the teams that don't tend to struggle.
Is that like your guys is kind of like, I mean, being in the business a long time, you tend to do basically every lead source that you possibly can, Realtor.com, Zillow, whatever it is. Like, so the playbook, like, tell me more about that, because that's super interesting. Because that's something that, I guess they have like your FAQs and certain things, and like, but like as far as the playbook that you guys have with Ojo and Movoto, like, what is it? What is the playbook?
It's really simple. It's from how you handle the initial introduction, where we teach agents, hey, you have one goal on that initial introduction. That's just to set an appointment and go meet with them. And when you meet with them, then you have the opportunity to build trust and rapport and earn the right to then start asking them a lot of questions. We teach them that when we introduce you to a consumer in a live introduction, which is what we do, that should be treated like an outbound call, not an inbound call. And an inbound call, if we get a call as an agent, it's very common for us to start asking them a bunch of questions like, what interested you about the property? Why did you call? How long have you been looking? Do you have a home to sell? Have you met with a lender yet? Right? We're asking those questions where like a doctor would be asking a patient who came to visit them to find out how they can, what's going on, how they can help them.
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. But when you're calling someone, you wouldn't call someone
So true.
who's not expecting your call and start asking them a bunch of questions. The response is going to be, who are you? Why are you asking me these questions? And never call me again, right? Hang on.
Right.
So we have to change agents' mindset and say, hey, this isn't that. Yes, they were on our site. Yes, they filled out a form, but we called them and vetted them. And then we brought you on the line. So it's like you're an extension of us as an outbound call, treat it that way. So there's just a lot of little things like that, hey, if you follow what the top teams are doing that are working, you'll have the same level of success.
That's so good. I never thought about that. I've never thought about it treated as an outbound. I think I'm always like, just get in front of them. That's always our goal. Just get in front of them because that's how I can build rapport. It's like, you want to see the property? What property? Great. 123 Main Street. All right, I'll meet you there. Let's go.
Yeah, which is like, for some agents, that's a challenge because it's different than what years ago, how they were trained or how they were brought up, right? But now with as technology continues to evolve, consumer behavior evolves along with it. And consumer expectations raise. And, and I listen to these calls, right? All our calls are recorded when we're introducing agents. I listened to one this morning where, the guy was like a cash buyer, wanted to see this house. Agents kept asking him questions. When the guy was patient, and finally the consumer says, you know what? We're not a good match. Thanks for your time, and hung up.
Oh my God.
I was like, that guy just lost. That guy just lost a great opportunity.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Quick close. Let's go. Like cash buyer. Wow. Oh, you were probably just shaking your head, weren't you?
Well, I ended up doing that a lot when you listen to these calls, but and it's not complicated. Like this is not brain surgery. This is not building rockets to Mars. This is like just common sense. Like, come on, folks.
What disc profile are you? Have you ever done disc profiles?
Yeah, I'm a DC. So my graph looks like a V.
I literally was going to call you out of the DC 100%. I was going to call you out of the DC. I mean, you have that, you're like, you have the drive, but like you have that like, you have to, I can see the analytical side of you. Like, which is so cool. Like DCs are, I met a few people that run big brokerages that they're DCs too. So I love putting that together because I'm just like, you have a lot of like the DIs out there that are agents. But when I see a DC, I'm like, okay, you're trying to go to the top. Like you're trying to go to the top, so that's so cool. That's what I figured. Cool. Well, how do people get in touch with like do they go to Ojo or tell them how to like, if they want to get part of a team, tell them to do it.
So if you're a solo agent, you can go to leverbymovoto.com. If you're a team, you can go to movoto.com, or you can just contact me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, wherever, and be happy to help anyone out or answer any questions they have.
Man, they can just get a hold of you that easy, huh? That's it. You're still out with the people here.
That's right.
Well, I really appreciate you joining me, man. I honestly, it's very impressive what you've done in your career, and I'm excited to see kind of what happens with Ojo Movato, and I know it's going to be successful. It seems like that's the trend that you're doing in your career. So if you guys need more leads, if you guys are more interested, go check them out. Go to Ojo, get a hold of him. You can just go to Chris Heller. We're going to put all of his contact in the post below. So if you want to message him on Instagram, Facebook, anywhere that he's at, message him. But I appreciate you coming on the show with me today. It's been really great. I feel like I have like a million other questions down here that I'm like trying to keep it. I feel like I'm looking back at the questions that I have you, and I'm like, these are going to be 15-minute questions that we're going to go on. So we might have to have you on again.
I'd be happy to come on again, Travis.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you guys, and we'll see you guys next time. All right.